Hey there YouTube, welcome back to another black powder update, and we're starting with this little furry-legged beast here, because this is her new little sitting spot, and it's actually the major part of the reason why it's literally taken me 2 weeks to actually finish off my Chassuers de Cheval. Well, I mean, I did start them from scratch, but where I was sort of used to doing sort of 6 or 7 hour painting sessions practically every day, this little beast has been loving walking through and sitting in my paint palette. And you may think that that's no big deal, but when you've got a mostly white cat, I mean, she's black on the top of her level, but her bottom level is all white. And her walking through and sitting in paint is not a favourite pastime to try and clear up. I mean, walking through paint, she'll trail paw prints everywhere. She doesn't particularly, I mean, she doesn't mind being picked up, but she doesn't particularly like being picked up and held in sort of funny positions, so it's really difficult to try and clean the paint off her paws. In fact, almost near impossible. And she definitely doesn't like being wiped by things that are wet. So for instance, if I try and wet a piece of kitchen roll to sort of wipe the paint off her paw, she'll go into panic mode and just literally try and run away. And this of course can cause major problems to any clothing you're wearing, as well as obviously leaving painty paw prints everywhere. I mean, I believe this here is actually the remnants of one of her paw prints, sort of a smudge there, and a lot of them are actually caught and have wiped up, obviously, but that one sort of semi-escaped me. But yeah, so that's the main reason why I've kind of been quite slow. Also, while I was doing my Chassuers de Cheval, I decided to sort of go back and revisit my very first unit. And I did some touch-up and renovation work on them, so I think that they look a lot better now, a lot tidier. And I also sort of sorted out a major couple of issues that I had with them. So let's leave Bobo here, and we'll swing across to the tripod where I have set up my at least the cavalry component is complete of the 3rd Cavalry Division, on attachment from 3rd Corps, of course, and actually at the Battle of Waterloo. So let's try and sort this camera out a little bit. I think I've got my tripod literally on the verge of the camera shot. I can't actually move it back any further because of my chair. Let's see if I can just move back a little bit more. Hold on. There we go. That's better. So here we go. We've got the three cavalry regiments of that particular division. These two here are the 1st Brigade, and this unit here is the 2nd Brigade. But of course, these are slightly smaller than the real thing, because I believe each regiment of cavalry had 3 squadrons. So if you're following it to the T, you'd actually need 9 units of Chassuers de Cheval, and there ain't a chance of me ever doing that. I mean, these guys are a lot easier to paint than oh, I've forgotten the name of them now. What are they called? Hussars. But 9 units of cavalry, no chance. So I just, I'm following my usual standard sort of plan of just doing one battalion or regiment in this case of cavalry per unit. So we have the 12th, we have the 4th, and we have the 9th, which of course are the ones that I've just completed. I actually finished off basing them about an hour ago, so they are literally freshly finished. So let's first of all start off with showing you what I changed on the original my original Chassuers de Cheval. Theoretically, I could have done something else, but I decided not to. So let's start with the command stand. So originally, I had my command stand set up so that I had the officer on this horse here, and I had the standard on this horse here. And obviously that's wrong. Obviously the bugler goes on the grey horse. So what I did was I removed the standard bearer and put him onto the horse on the following stand, which is like my standard thing to do. And I moved the officer onto the Palomino, and I moved the guy that I took. Actually, thinking about it, I didn't move the officer. He was always on this Palomino horse. I swapped bodies with the horse next to him. And this guy, I removed his arm, and the classic old Victrix box to the rescue, the Victrix infantry, French infantry. I gave him a bugle because there was I've got loads of spare bugle arms, so that really worked out well. And I just literally painted it up. So I was very, very happy with how that turned out. I mean, the other thing that I could have theoretically done, and perhaps I will do in the future, is that I could give him the dual uniform colours, the reverse uniform colours that I have got in my other two regiments. But for the moment, for nostalgia factor, and you know, another sort of reminiscent noob mistake, I'm going to leave the Skirsiers for now. The officer, I just repainted. Did I do anything on him? I don't think I did. I think I just tidied him up. I just gave him a little bit of a sort of shading, and touched up any sort of messy paint marks. And I actually painted. Actually did all of them. I painted them on gloves because they all had flesh hands, and I do like all my Chassuers de Cheval to have gloves. So I went in and painted all the hands white, and of course the sabre's handles, his was actually gold, so that was no problem. But obviously on the other troops they were silver, and they needed to be painted bronze. So that is the officer's stand, and that's obviously the bugler was the main conversion on that particular stand. And now the second thing I did was obviously all of the guys had their sabres and their hands touched up, was the standard. Now obviously the standard's been moved to the correct horse, and the big thing I did was I removed that horrible looking plastic putty eagle that I made, which wasn't too bad for making it a plastic putty, but it was just mega oversized. I basically, during my Victrix again, I basically converted two, possibly three of the Eagles standards into halberd protectors. So obviously you cut the eagle off. So I actually used one of the spare eagles because I kept them, and I actually just cut a little notch into the bottom there. You can just about make it out, and I stuck it to the top of the standard pole, and it's basically given them an eagle, and I was very chuffed with that. So these guys have been really tidied up, and they look great now. I mean, there's still a little touch of noobness to them, but I'm very happy with them now. And now let's go on to the actual stars of the show, which of course are these guys, the 9th, I believe. So let's start off with the first stand. Now these guys, I did them in two parts. I basically did 10 horses and painted them almost right the way up to completion. And I started painting initially 3 figures, and I basically got them to sort of like base colours stage, and then I went back in and I've completed all the horses. I did all their saddle work, all their bridle work, and literally the only thing I didn't do was paint the 9s, which I did at the very, very, very end after everything had been completed. I left the musketoons off, I left their heads off, I left the sword arms off, and I left the scabbards off. And yeah, it was a little bit tedious, but it worked quite well. The horses I spent a lot of time on. They literally took me a complete week, and it took me another week to do the 2 bunches of guys, and then finally the officer and the bugler, which I did from scratch at the very end. So I did their horses and their bodies. I like to sort of leave the officers and the buglers at the very end as a sort of a reward for getting through the rank and file. I've got to say that these Perry's ones, this is the first time I've used Perry's Chassuers Cheval, and I really do like them. I love the horses. I like the way that the little triangular horse blanket actually protrudes a lot more than it does on the Warlord ones. The figures, I'd say the figures are, there's so many options for these guys that you have to be very careful about selecting the right bodies and the right legs and also the right heads. I'd imagine it'd be quite easy to, I mean, I actually did it 2 or 3 times myself. You end up finding that you've stuck the wrong body on, and you have to sort of rip it off and then re-undercoat it and repaint it. Excuse me. So yeah, like I say, and the other big thing that I really liked was the way that they do their musketoons. The Warlord ones obviously are fixed to the leg. These ones are loose, and not only are they incredibly detailed, but also they have a little hole on the opposite side, which you can use to plug in the bayonet to their strap attachment, and it really is a cool little idea, because not only does it make it easier to actually stick it on, but it also gives you a little bit of flexibility in putting it into a certain position. And I think these 2 guys here actually got their musketoons at slightly different positions. This one's slightly forward of his leg, and this one's more butted up against his leg. And you can see, obviously, these guys have got pink facings. And I've got to say, I was very happy with Vallejo Pink. It was a really easy colour to work with. I was a little worried that it would be opaque or wouldn't go on very well, and I was really surprised that it excuse me, it was a great consistency. It's definitely the best pink that I've ever worked with, and not that I've actually had that much experience with pink, because I don't think I've ever really painted anything pink, to tell the truth. I think I probably, back in the day when I had Citadel paints, I think I possibly got a pink in a paint set or something, and it was a terrible colour. It was watery. You could, even if you painted it on white, it was still terrible. I was kind of like, it was in the back of my mind that you might have a lot of problems with pink, but in the end I didn't have any problems at all, even to the point where some of it was actually painted on straight over the green, and it went on perfectly. All of the edging around their facings was all done over the green, and it was only their tailing which was actually done with an extra coat of either bone or white underneath it. So that was the first unit. There's a couple of what we got here, a couple of chestnut horses. Again, I went full boat on the horses this time. I really spent a long time on them and did the full sort of 7-stage process. And I think it does definitely show at the end, I think, compared to doing like a 2 or 3 stage, which I have done in the past. But yeah, I was very happy with the way the horses turned out. My cat has actually come and sat on my leg here while I'm trying to do a video. So let's go for the next unit. The other thing I did with these guys was I haven't actually stuck them to their horses. They're actually blue tacked on. I've been finding that a lot, especially with my last unit, with my Hussars, I was having trouble actually getting them to like stick down onto the horse. And in the end, I just thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to literally I'm going to blue tack these guys down. So every guy is attached by blue tack, and it's a pretty, you know, it's a good hole. It's a brand new packet of blue tack. They're not shifting, and of course you can remove them if you ever need to do a touch up or anything. And that is, I think I've got possibly a couple of my Hussars that I did the same thing to, because I just couldn't get them to stick down. It was messing up all the saddle work and everything. So these guys are actually blue tacked down, and if you look carefully on some of them, you can see the blue tack. But I actually worked out the actual size piece that you can just about see some there, just about. But yeah, I'm very happy with the blue tacking them down, actually, to tell the truth. I think it does the job. And like I say, the very last thing I did was paint the little 9 on. But yeah, I really do like these Perry Chassuers Cheval. They're definitely better than the Warlord ones. That's the second unit. Squadron. Well, no, I suppose unit actually. And here's the corner. Oh, that one, the last one I showed you was actually the pseudonym command squad that I always have. And you can tell by the white-nosed horse. And of course, the last back rank. I also quite like the way you get a couple of. I think you get like 3 or 4 different sword arm options, which is really good. Just put that little bit of extra. It's nice to have different sword positions that's not either at rest or charge. It's nice to have some in between, and that was another good thing about the Perry's box. I suppose the only thing you could say that's not good is because you have so many options. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, that you actually sometimes you have to really look carefully at what you're selecting to put on. So let's next go for the first company, the elite company, of course. And these guys come out pretty good. I had to come up with my own design for the top part of their hats, because there was no like pictures of them. But I think that looks pretty good. The sort of the pink with the surrounded by the red. I think it came out looking pretty cool. And you can see the pink facings around the edge of the saddle work, and also around their uniforms, and of course the back pinning of the pink stripe, which is kind of at the back of their row of buttons and the trousers. And of course the musketoons again. So that's the first squadron, the elite company, and then we'll go for the standard. Now for these guys, obviously the Perry's troops don't come with standards, so what I did was back to the old Victrix again, and I literally just took a standard arm and stuck it on, and you know, perfect fit, and boom, these guys have got a standard. Very happy. This Victrix set has been absolutely amazing. I've done so much extra stuff beyond just building French battalions out of them. They're literally a treasure trove of options. So there, of course, the again, horses. We went for bays and chestnuts again. Sort of the standard sort of cavalry horses. Some of them got white socks, but yeah, that's the standard. And finally, the command, and of course we have the white grey horse of the bugler this time. I think it came out quite nice, and the orangey chestnut horse of the officer this time. I decided to put a little bit extra desert yellow into the mix when I was doing the very, very final sort of highlights and stuff, and it gave him like a slightly more orangey toned chestnut horse. just to sort of denote that he's got a sort of thoroughbred. And he's got the nice sort of white muzzle and more or less a straight stripe up the head. And other than that, he's completely pure. And of course, the officer's blanket, which again was shown in the old French website that I use. I always use that for uniforms these days. And of course, the officer's silver epaulette, because cavalry epaulettes were silver and not gold like the infantry. And I think a little bit of creative license on the white pom-poms, because I couldn't actually nail what colour the command squadron would be. I mean, I suppose in the sort of elite companies they would obviously match the squadron colours, but because this is like a mishmash of all the various squadrons, I had to come up with some creative license, so I decided to go for white in the end. So basically all the others have actually got correct coloured pom-poms, including the two that I've actually forgot to point them out, that they're actually red and orange, but with like a white ball in the middle. For the sort of there's actually no fourth squadron. It goes 1, 2, 3. No, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6. It doesn't actually have a fourth, which is kind of strange. But yeah, quite happy with the way the officer turned out. I gave him the grey trousers, and of course it's got slightly different striping, so it's got a full-on pink stripe. And I've given him his the white belt with the red stripe down the middle. Of course, the red bandolier. I do like this officer's horse. The officer's horse is it's sort of like a unique sculpt compared to all the other horses. You have to actually, where all the horses were like 2 parts, this officer's one was 3 parts. So you actually sort of stuck the head on separately, and you can see that because of that, his bridle work and his reins are actually sort of hollow underneath, where on a normal one it's sort of chunked together. But yeah, I very happy with the way the horses turned out actually this time around. Probably perhaps the best horses I've painted thus far. And I do really like the officer. I mean, he's nothing super special, but he's a nice officer figure. Particularly like his facial expression. And of course the bugler in his reversed colours. So rather than green and pink, he's pink and green. Which of course I was referring back to my very first unit, where theoretically his colours should be reversed too. So he should have like a sort of crimson red coloured jacket and have green facings. But like I say, I may do that in the future. But for now, for sort of a nostalgia factor, he'll be kept the same. But yeah, I was a little dubious how this guy would turn out, assuming he's like got a completely pink torso. But I think it turned out okay in the end. You can see he's got a slightly different button arrangement as well. So yeah, that is the command stand, and that is the end of that particular unit. So yeah, like I say, they took me a lot longer to do, 2 weeks as opposed to probably 1. But there was obviously, I suppose if you think about it, if my painting time was halved or less, then it kind of works out. I've certainly not lost the painting bug, so it certainly wasn't a loss of sort of interest or sort of painting block or anything like that. I'm glad I've done them. Of course, obviously my French now outnumber my British and cavalry again. And I think all I need to do to actually properly finish off this the 3rd Cavalry Division is just add a couple of units of horse artillery. According to the army lists, they had 2 is it 2 batteries of 6-pounders and one 2 batteries of 6-pounders and two howitzers. So I'll probably convert that into 1 battery of 6-pounders and 1 battery of howitzers. So that's basically all I've got to get to completely finish this division. And I think that'll that's obviously not too difficult a feat, but obviously it'll mean having to probably buy metal guns, but that's not the end of the world. I'll probably end up getting Perry's, I imagine. It'd be quite nice to paint some horse artillery for a change, but I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do next. I might possibly do a battalion of British. It depends if I can get the flag in. You know, starting my King's German Legion. I'll probably be starting with a 5th, which I believe is a line regiment. And also on my paint desk at the moment, I'm doing a battalion or a brigade commander. Probably, as far as sort of like proper brigades go on the table, because these guys are just one, I'll probably just amalgamate them together, like abridge them, like I basically did with all the rest of my infantry. Although I suppose I could, no, I probably will do that, and perhaps make my artillery a brigade. But I don't know. I mean, I can come to that when I come to it. But I'm very happy to have completed these guys. They are literally the only cavalry component of 3rd Corps. I probably, when I finish them, I'll probably think about perhaps doing a few other different types of cavalry units, just as guest units. Because you know, I wouldn't mind getting some heavy cavalry, and I wouldn't mind getting some lancers, because I think they'd be quite interesting to paint. But I think I'll probably give French Hussars a miss. You know, other than perhaps getting spurred on by watching the duelists, I really have no inkling in my soul to do more chasseurs, not chasseurs, more hussars. After doing those, after doing the Cumberland ones from the British. So that's the end of this video. Funnily enough, around my usual sort of time with me waffling on and stuff. Hope you enjoyed it. Been watching all your videos, commenting where I can, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye bye.